I'm going to read one more story tonight, and then I'm going to play for you a surprise, a 2-hour-long recording that I'll describe when I get to the end of this story by Ezekiel Kralin, the latest in the series about the two little dogs, Flacco and Lucky, and Deke, and the various other people involved in the story that have been going along for... Already we're up to January 29th. So maybe I'll catch up one day with the real world. Any Cabin in a Storm is the title of this. Ezekiel Kralin wrote. Email correspondence January 29th and the 31st. Subject, I came that close to calling the cops again. Date January 29th. I'm wondering if his egregious nature of late has anything to do with his possibly reducing his meth intake. Feeling super crappy is part of the early process, but I can only conjecture. I really have no idea what's going on with him since he's landed that room or cabin. I doubt he's faking that and returned to living on the streets. Otherwise, he'd have his shopping cart again, and not just some baby carriage, at least not for an extended period of time, which for him would be more than 2 days, and have acquired a much larger speaker by now and other detritus. But the most obvious reason I believe he's living outdoors now is he no longer asks me to charge his devices. And that's one aspect alone. That one aspect alone may be the major reason he'll continue keeping a shelter and going through their program, or at least it's certainly a big deal in his world. Though I'd like to think protecting his dogs counts as something too. Unfortunate that he seems to value electronic crap over them. As for the shaman's way, it is typical of them, at least in most variations of their practice, to harass, mock, and scorn one who has achieved a phenomenally positive outcome after years of sacrifice and dedication, instead of immediately patting the hero on the back and showering him or her with awards, gifts, and gratitude, which does come eventually, but first the initiation of vile projections. How long this goes on, I have no idea, though I'm sure the greater the accomplishment, the more lengthy and grueling the initiation. Conclusion, this is what I conjecture is the cause of Deke's increased antagonism since he acquired a roof over his head and compassionate care after my many years of reaching out to him, especially since he adopted the Brindlekin. Subject, after midnight he's sleeping outside with the pups. January 31st, 12:45 a.m. Deke dropped by about 9:30 p.m., asked me to charge his speaker. He later acquired a second one about an hour later in a barter up the block. Smartphone's gone, I guess. It was a peaceful meetup. Hopefully it will stay that way till he departs, which will probably be around sunrise, or a bit later, though he might wake me up at a wee hour instead to get his devices. You never know with him. He loves to keep me in suspense, another trickster move. I brought a large sheet of cardboard down and 2 child-size orange sleeping bags while he stepped away for a time. He wasn't upset at all when he returned about my providing them with a nest. He wasn't even bothered by my feeding them some treats, which I had hoped to finish before he got back, but I didn't. He zonked out about 11:30 p.m., but before that his friend, also named Deke, so let's call him Deke number 2, showed up for an hour or so. I returned upstairs to give them their space, happy that the dogs were cozy and warm. When midnight came, I went back downstairs to see if Deke was ready for me to return his speakers, but he was out cold, slumped, way bent over his crossed legs, head almost touching his feet, typical meth head posture. I talked for a few minutes with Deke, too, asked how he's doing. He said, well, and I replied, you certainly look healthy, and he does, good doctor, much better than last year, not so scrawny and wan-looking. He's one handsome mofo, by the way. Then I said to him, Deke claims he's got a room now, but he refuses to tell me where it's located. Yes, he does, he quickly replied, his face lit up. Great, I said. Is it a room or a cabin? It's a cabin, but it's small. Yeah, I know they are. So I popped that $64,000 question. Is he staying at the 33 Golf Shelter? Yeah, and I'm close by, about half block up. That's fantastic. Glad to hear it, I exclaimed sotto voce so as not to wake Deke up. As if that would, he could sleep through an alien invasion, but I don't want him to accuse me of talking behind his back or hear Deke, too, reveal to me his address. I then queried. It's nice they let you be away up to 48 hours. That's kind of them, since it's hard to trust any organization when you've lived on the streets so many years. Do they have a curfew, or can Deke return any time? Because he said to me earlier he doesn't feel like going back there tonight. No, he can return any time, day or night, he replied. Then he rummaged through a large bag dangling from his bicycle's handlebars and pulled out a long, hooded blue garment. Here, can you use a raincoat? I see what I've done. Okay. And there's where I left off. It was a quality brand Hollister made in California. And since I gave Deke my $16 poncho a few weeks back, and it was the only rain gear I had, I said, I sure can. Thanks. We talked a little more. Then I told him a joke I heard on Marshall's latest podcast about a talking dog, wished him good night, and returned hovel after making sure the hounds were still tucked in and protected from the chill night air. Well, I'm going to bed soon myself, Watson. I'm sure you're already in dreamland. See you there shortly. I just thought you'd be delighted to know he did get a cabin at 33 Gough. I sure am. P.S. There they are. See picture. Before hitting the sack, I checked outside my window to see if both dogs were still covered. Flacco wasn't, as she had moved atop both blankets to be closer to her master. So I stepped back outside to cover her with an old blue jacket Deke left behind some weeks ago, which I held on to for just this purpose. Subject, perfect meet-up from start to finish, January 31st, 11 a.m. Deke called up to my window at 6:55 a.m. I looked out to see him lying on his back with a blanket over him and 2 puppy lumps huddled beneath it. He saw me then. I found it funny, his gazing up at me from that supine position, and said, "Bring my stuff down. I gotta go." It was actually not a bad time to wake me, since the call of nature does anyway every morning around 7:15, after which I lie down again for maybe another half hour. When I delivered his electronics, he was already standing up. He shook himself and exclaimed, "It's fucking cold out here," which remark he's never made before on other cold nights. So it piqued my curiosity, seeing as he's told me in the past that smoking meth keeps him warm. Does this mean he's smoking less? Come to think of it, Watson, I don't think he broke out his bubble pipe even once last night. Needless to say, the hounds were not eager to leave their fluffy nest and resisted their master's command to get up and go, but only for a few seconds, since they're so attuned to him with loving hearts. He no longer had that baby carriage, but an oversized granny cart, just like the last one I now have stashed in my room, for when he'll need it again. They took off barely 2 minutes after I stepped outside to gather up the sleeping bags, jacket, and cardboard. As I approached the front gate, I turned my head to see them crossing Market Street instead of Noe? Is that how to say that? Which I found strange, because the simplest way to walk to 33 Gough is to remain on this side of the street and proceed forward 3 blocks, then turn left. Is he going to remain outside and just park elsewhere? I thought. But no, he stopped at the transit island to wait for the next streetcar. Flacco and Lucky looked so cute, sitting there beside their master in the garments I dressed them with last night. She, a maroon sweater, and he, a blue jacket with Velcro straps. They seemed quite accustomed to riding the transit, as neither grew restless, but waited patiently for the streetcar to arrive, then immediately stepped inside as the door folded open. They leapt onto the front side seats as Deke followed with his cart, not a single bark or yelp out of them. Off they went, I guess, for breakfast at the shelter, as well as a warm and cozy, secure oasis. I bet the dogs are so happy with their tiny cabin, and they have that patio to run around and bask in the sunlight when it's there and spread cheer to other residents. So off I went, too, back upstairs to take a hearty dump and pee, then sleep a while longer. I felt aglow with joy as I lay there in the cot, thinking to myself, now that was one excellent meet-up from beginning to end. P.S. Attached is a picture of that superb raincoat Deke 2 gave me last night, zippered pockets and all. By the way, slight correction in our dialogue. Deke 2 said, "Do you have a raincoat?" Me, thinking he was asking for one. No. Wait, yes, I have a few disposable ones upstairs. I can bring one down for Deke 2 said, pulling the rubberized garment from a bag. "Can you use this?" After midnight, he's sleeping outside with the pups, January 31st afternoon. Watson wrote, "That was some good fact-gathering, and discreet, too." I replied, "Well, they don't call me Zeke K. Holmes for nothing. Deke 2 is the one who told me several years back that my Deke asked him to kill someone for him. I believe he did, as 2 is not the compulsive liar like my trickster, although I'd never share that juicy tidbit with him, just as I don't other unseemly things I know about him, even as vengeance against his maltreatment. because such revelations would likely drive him away from me as well as cause great damage toward his spiritual progress. I don't think Deke, too, in all the 7+ years I've known him, ever witnessed my Deke's rotten behavior towards me until 8 days ago. That was the Dragon Book incident, which witnessing forced him to suppress an explosion of guffaws as he sat there quietly through it all. Not that I haven't discussed with him a few times Deke's bipolar mood swings, and it was during one such talk he revealed Deke's request that he blow someone away. I don't know what upset Deke so much over this guy, though knowing his fickle mood so well, it could have been something as innocuous as telling him the weed or meth he sold him sucks. I find it curious. They both have the same name, though applying my bodhisattva premise to this question, I come up with Deke, too, as his comrade in arms, though they keep this under wraps. In this way, he serves as a witness to my many years of compassion toward Deke and the dogs, and explains why he's shown up in my world again in this latest cycle, because it marks a major breakthrough, that is, finally getting a roof over his head. And all thanks to my own long-suffering and patience over a great length of time, guiding him through his ordeals, beating back the demons that threaten to destroy him. Though I think that explanation is the lower level of two, the higher one being that Deke, as a bodhisattva angel himself, is merely playing the role of one. In his great need of kindness and patience, he may not even be unhoused. And in so doing, he shapes me into a hero as I overcome one hurdle after another until I reach the finish line, which explains his typically calm, amenable demeanor a day or two after his latest and most deplorable hissy fit. For he did his job, accomplished what had to be done to get me through the latest step in my journey along life's convoluted path. Assuming I am correct that Deke is a shaman, and there are other shamans living on the streets, or at least acting like they do, I must have gained quite an honorable reputation after so many decades of speaking out for the indigents of our queer community and being of active service to them as well. This should eventually erupt into some kind of celebration, a transformation, a revolution, if you will. I have a hunch it will be very soon at this point, since Deke is now housed and the pups are secured and joyful as a result. In other words, I have achieved my goal. What say you, good doctor? I hope you're having another English muffiny day. As for myself, they've run out, which is fine, because I need to get around to start breaking fast with Ezekiel's outstanding whole-grain sprouted flourless raisin bread, which has been sitting in my freezer for more than 2 weeks now, until I took half a loaf out to thaw overnight and enjoyed my first 2 slices this morning.